Get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn. Check out the show notes for your promo code to get started podcasting today.
I have that fear of failure. And so I've had to, as an entrepreneur, I've had to learn to embrace failure and to embrace, the lessons along the way and not be afraid of taking chances, because that's where the reward is, when you take these risks and you put yourself out there and you do things a little differently. If you've seen my social media and things, like, I'm not your typical attorney. So, and I love that. And I love how people in the community, when I get to meet new people and they're like, yeah, I really love how, you do jump rope, or how you encourage, health, and how you fold it into the work that you do. And it's really all one thing for me, because the work that I do impacts everyone. And there's so many different components to it. It's not just money, but it's, your family, it's your health, it's, your legacy, it's all these different things. So I really, when I get to have these opportunities to share about my journey and the work that I do, I just feel so blessed, because I know that, other people may not be as fortunate. And I wouldn't have been as fortunate if some of these things didn't present themselves the way that they did.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Unlocking the Club. I'm your host, Angela Taylor, and today we're diving into a powerful conversation with a very special guest who's helping people plan for their futures in a profound way. Our guest, Shane Jasmine Young, is a remarkable attorney specializing in estate planning. And while she'll be joining us today, and she'll also be part of our 12-part series on estate planning. But today's episode is all about getting to know the woman behind the expertise. From her journey into law to her passion for helping families protect their legacies, Shane has a story you won't want to miss. We'll explore what inspired her to enter this field, the challenges she faces as a Black woman in law, and how she's using her platform to bring essential knowledge to our communities and making it accessible. It's a conversation that touches on much more than just estate planning. It's about how we can all take steps to secure our futures and care for the ones that we love. So whether you're listening during your morning commute or settling in after a long day, get ready for an insightful and inspiring conversation. Let's unlock Shane Jasmine Young's story together, right here on Unlocking the Club.
Welcome to the Unlocking the Club podcast, where we host honest and direct conversations about journeys of access, personal truth, and reclaiming space. We share our truth so that you can find the key to own your truth, honor your journey, and reclaim your space. Grab your keys, your wallet, your phone, and invite your friends to meet you at the club. Here's your host, Angela Taylor.
Shane Jasmine Young is the founder of the law firm Young Law Group and is passionate about educating, counseling, and providing exceptional value and service to clients. Young's practice is focused on legal, life, and legacy planning, which includes business law and family estate planning, including wills, trusts, power of attorneys, guardianship, kids and pets protection planning, special needs planning, business succession planning, and so much more. The law group is based out of Las Vegas. As a mother of 5, Young is dedicated to empowering others to make well-informed decisions for themselves, their loved ones, and children, and their businesses, keeping them out of the court and out of conflict, providing true peace of mind and achieving goals in the most effective and efficient way. As the founder of Young Law Group, Shane has a wide range of experience, which she's gained from working at 2 national law firms and serving as a general counsel for a corporate client. She also enjoys working in the community and helping others. Thanks for tuning in today as we share some food for thought in a soulful conversation with Shane Jasmine Young, Esquire. Shane, welcome to Unlocking the Club. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so wonderful. Like, I've been looking forward to this. We have some mutual acquaintances and I've heard about your journey to where you are over the years. And it's quite remarkable, and look forward to being able to share a little bit of that, peeling back the curtain with our listeners and our viewers. And I know we just read your bio. You're doing a lot. But I wonder, in between the work and the 5 young girls that you have, Who else is Shane Jasmine Young?
Oh my gosh. Well, our lives are so busy. It's so interesting even for you to ask that question because it's so many things. I think back to, when I was a teenager and, the things that I was interested then and, my interest in the law, at a young age and, kind of progressing through life and these different changes and the evolution and, being married and having kids and becoming a lawyer. It's just, sometimes it just feels surreal.
Yeah, it has to. It has to. Well, I was quite impressed with the fact that as you were attending Pepperdine University, graduating magna cum laude with your Bachelor of Science, that you were pregnant with twins.
Yes.
How and what was that like?
Oh my gosh. Well, just to take it a step back, my husband and I are actually high school sweethearts. And so we grew up in Las Vegas together. We met when we were 16 and 17 at a track meet. We were both athletes and started dating. And so we've been together since 1995. And we were both living in LA at the time. I was going to Pepperdine. He was also modeling. And we found out my last semester of school that I was pregnant. And then towards the end of the semester, we found out not only, were we expecting one baby, we were expecting two babies. So that happened, that discovery occurred the last week, actually, during my finals of my last semester of college. So a lot happened, within that time frame. And I had actually planned to go to law school in the fall, but that's when they were due. So I was 5 months pregnant when I graduated from Pepperdine. And I put my law school entrance, admission on hold. I was supposed to stay in Southern California and I was either going to go to USC or Pepperdine's law school. And when I realized that Las Vegas, the Boyd School of Law at UNLV had a part-time program, I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe that's a better option. We've got family, that could help us, both sides of our family. Our parents were here still. So after my graduation in April of 2000, we came back home to Las Vegas and I stayed home with our daughters. They were born in August. I stayed home with them for that first year. And on their first birthday, I actually started law school at Boyd.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, what is remarkable about that, and I would love to dig into, is the ability to pivot. And I was just speaking at a conference earlier this week, and we talked about mindset, whether it's the scarcity mindset or growth mindset.
Yeah.
And so often people have a plan. You had a plan to go to law school, become an attorney, and maybe not to have twins, right?
Right.
Early on in that journey. But so often people are overwhelmed by change,
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed that obstacle. If we don't know what our North Star is, it may derail us, right?
Mhm.
And completely send us in a different path. So what was it, or who was it influenced your ability to be able to quickly pivot and still maintain your North Star and your dream of becoming an attorney?
Yeah, I would have to say it's my husband. He's the one that really is always able to like bring it back to center for me. And he has such a great vision and he can see things, that I don't necessarily see. So by my nature, I'm very much someone that likes to plan. I like to have a routine. I like to know what to expect. I'm a Capricorn, so I'm very much, structured in that way. So when my plan doesn't, come, or work according to plan, things don't happen the way I've planned. It can kind of, send me into like oh, okay, like what do we do now? And so I've learned to be able to accommodate change and to be able to navigate these different types of situations. And I think another thing that we have, as a family and as a couple is, just the faith in ourselves that things are going to work out and we have the control and the ability to make the best of any situation. So that's what we did. We went we came back home. I went to law school. Thankfully I figured that out. I don't know, looking back on those days, I'm like, gosh, how did I manage that? I don't know. But we had a lot of great support and I was able to graduate at the top of my class and get a job at the big law firm. And so I was 25 years old making six figures and really good position with my career, the trajectory that we were headed. Was really just my family, of course, was very proud, and I felt really blessed to be able to accomplish that.
Mhm. Well, just listening to you, it sounds just matter of fact, like,
Mhm.
right? There is no alternative. But I hope you know how inspiring that story is to others. And I know those some listeners out there will be inspired by the story that you're willing to move forward. My business partner, Stacy Parsons, says this all the time is when we plan, we're 50-50. Right. And the reason we're 50-50 is again because when that obstacle hits and those that aren't prepared to pivot or change,
Mm.
they get derailed.
Right.
But when you dream, you're always batting 100% because no matter how many U-turns you need to make, how many pauses you need to make, you still know what your North Star is. And so that's what it sounds like to you. But you mentioned this word that really resonated with me as you were sharing some aspects of your story, and that was the word faith.
Mhm.
That you and Charles have had faith. Where did you get that faith?
I think it starts with a belief in yourself, a belief in a higher power, if you're religious, belief in God, or whatever that might be. And I've always found that even growing up, with my family, there were a lot of struggles. So, my dad was an entrepreneur and had a lot of setbacks as far as, his mission in business. And, you mentioned mindset, scarcity versus, growth mindset. And that was something that I actually had to learn how to overcome as far as being afraid, and having that fear of failure. And, what if it doesn't work out? And what if we don't have enough? And I think it came from from seeing firsthand the struggles that my family, faced financially in particular with, the issues that my dad had in his journey. And so when it took me a long time to step into being able to really fully embrace being an entrepreneur, because I was just like, okay, no, I've got to go to school. I've got to get, a great job, and I've got to have like a good paycheck. And of course, I started my career already with a family. We already had a family of four. So there was no choice, for me. I had to do it in my mind. It was just a given. And so I did get locked into, that corporate world and that corporate lifestyle. Like, okay, yeah, I'm at the great firm. I'm making really good money. We're able to pay our bills. My husband was also an entrepreneur, so he had the flexibility and the freedom to be able to, invest in different business, small business ventures. But he always knew from the beginning, okay, well, at some point we're going to open up a firm. And he would check in and be like, okay, are you ready to do it now? And I'd be like, no, like, well, I'm not ready because, I don't know enough yet. Or what if we don't have clients? And, we'd basically be putting all of our eggs, into that basket, when really we were relying on that stability of my career, for our family. So, my journey really did take some years to go from private law firm. I was with two, as you mentioned, two national firms for about 10 years, and had really good experiences. I learned a lot. I was able to grow as a young professional, as an attorney. And then I went in-house, and I was in-house as a general counsel for a financial services firm for almost 3 years. And I was actually laid off from that position, which I knew I was expecting it, because when they hired me, they let us know that, okay, we're looking for your help to really get everything, in order for our business so that we can sell it. And it just happened about 6 months earlier than I anticipated. So when I got that, on that day when it was like, oh, okay, I don't have a job anymore, I had to make a decision. And that's where, again, just being led by faith and the support of, our family, we decided to make that jump and start our own firm. And it was the best decision that I could have made.
Mm. Well, I want to dig a little bit deeper into a couple things that you shared. You talked about being laid off,
Mhm.
and you talked about not being sure if you're ready.
Mhm.
When it comes to being laid off, I appreciate you so comfortably being able to throw that out there, because I find for myself and for many others, particularly Black women
Mhm.
who are accomplished and high achievers,
Right.
it's really difficult to share those failures,
Mhm.
right? Even if we knew it was coming down the line, oftentimes we look internal, like what could we have done differently?
Mhm.
Like, how did you interact with being laid off and the possibility of being laid off, and that juxtaposed with your commitment to excellence?
Right. So because I knew that it was coming, I was looking, it happened in June and we were anticipating January. We didn't really have anything in place as far as that next step. And we had talked about setting up our own firm but we hadn't done anything to really get that ball moving forward. So at that moment, that day, I remember thinking, okay, well, do I go on LinkedIn and, look for another position, or do we just go all in with this law firm? And, again, faith, being led by faith. I don't know where it came from, but it was like, all right, this is the decision that we're making. We both were on board. We set up the firm, I formed it, of course, as a legal entity, filed with the Secretary of State. I got my corporate documents in place. Thankfully, I'm also a business attorney, so it was very easy for me to be able to do that,
Exactly what you needed to
yeah.
do.
Right. We got our website and everything set up, but I had zero clients, zero clients. So, in my industry, most times when someone opens up their own firm, they're usually coming with a book of business. They already have, at least a subset of clients that they're able to serve to be able to, continue and grow and build upon that. But I had nothing. I had no clients because I wasn't coming from a firm, I was coming from in-house. So when we started, it was like, all right, let's see how this is going to work. Thankfully, my prior corporate job, they actually retained me and they hired my firm as outside counsel, so I was on a retainer. And then after a few months, they tried to rehire me. The new company that had purchased the business, they actually offered to hire me full time, and at that point I was like, yeah, no. No, thank you. So, it all kind of worked out. And I think that just being open to change and being open to another pathway is what has allowed me to really do the type of work that I love, to create this business and to really do things a lot differently than even, my peers and other law firms, that you see out there.
Being open to change. Well, and I wonder, so often this comes up in the conversations that we have on Unlocking the Club, where some people could have easily stayed in a decent situation,
Mhm.
a good situation, oftentimes a not so great situation for 5, 10 more years. But there was some triggered, some catalyst. The same was true for me.
Mhm.
I had this entrepreneurial spirit, but I kept putting it aside because growing up, my parents had taught me, put your head down, work extremely hard, get good grades, get your education, get a job, and stay in that job.
Mhm.
And so that's what I thought you need to do. And I knew there was a lot of people that would love to have had the title or the role or be working with the organization that I was in. And I felt like I needed to be grateful
Mhm.
and not selfish about looking somewhere else.
Right.
But sometimes there's a catalyst
Mhm.
that says, you know what? Now's the right time. And without that catalyst, I don't know if I would have left.
Mhm.
Without that catalyst, knowing that being laid off was looming in January or June, would you have been ready to start your own firm as soon, or did that kind of accelerate the process for you?
I would definitely say it accelerated the process, and it brought the decision really like to the forefront because it was something that, I'd had out there and there was no real time frame. So when it happened, I needed to pick a direction. I needed to go left or right. And I did think about it. I took a little bit of time and, was like, should I submit some applications? Should I put my resume out there? And then I felt like, you know what, if I don't just go all in and commit to doing this now, I may never have this opportunity again. And there's always going to be some other distraction or some other opportunity, perhaps, if I accepted another job, then I would have to focus and be committed to doing well and succeeding and serving in that role, which would take away from me being able to do the business that, I wanted to be able to do. So I think sometimes like you need that catalyst, you need that push, you need something to happen in order to get you over that hump. And thankfully it did work out. Otherwise I may have stayed, in the corporate world, for longer because I'm one of those people that's also very much a perfectionist. And, if I don't feel 100% ready, then, I have that fear of failure. And so I've had to, as an entrepreneur, I've had to learn to embrace failure and to embrace, the lessons along the way and not be afraid of taking chances, because that's where the reward is, when you take these risks and you put yourself out there and you do things a little differently. If you've seen my social media and things, like, I'm not your typical attorney. So, and I love that. And I love how people in the community, when I get to meet new people, and they're like, yeah, I really love how, you do jump rope, or how you encourage, health, and how you fold it into the work that you do. And it's really all one thing for me, because the work that I do impacts everyone. And there's so many different components to it. It's not just money, but it's, your family, it's your health, it's, your legacy, it's all these different things. So I really, when I get to have these opportunities to share about my journey and the work that I do, I just feel so blessed, because I know that, other people may not be as fortunate. And I wouldn't have been as fortunate if some of these things didn't present themselves the way that they did.
Well, I have a great appreciation for you inviting us into 360 of your life, because I do think, particularly for young women of color who may be looking to be an attorney, the only images we see represented, whether it's on TV or in the news,
Mhm.
oftentimes don't look like us. And so we think that that's how we have to be and how we have to show up in order to earn that role and to earn the respect in the industry. But what you're demonstrating in a really powerful way is inviting people to see who you can truly be. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Like, there's a sense of when you are really good at what you do, or you have this corporate job, there's a compartmentalization that happens.
Yes.
And there's two sides of that, right? There's the ability for us to be able to context and code switch. And that's a beautiful thing about Black women, that we're able to do in any situation. We're fluid, we can be chameleons.
Right.
But there's also sometimes this forced need and desire for us to compartmentalize who we are at work
Mhm.
and who we are at home. Does that show up for you, or was there an evolution for you to be able to get to the point where you felt comfortable in inviting everyone into your whole life?
Yeah, it was difficult for me, because I tend to be a very, private, more of an introvert, as far as my personality, which, people that look at me now, they're like, there's no way that you are actually an introvert. And it's just funny, because when I was younger, I was one of those kids that would hate to have to get up in front of the class and give a presentation. And when I would have to do that in elementary school, I would fake sick. And so as I got older and I kind of forced myself to, be the first one to volunteer to give the presentation, I got more comfortable with it and I overcame that fear. But naturally, I do tend to be more of an introvert. I like being at home. I like having time, to myself. Although I love being around people, it's a balance that I have to, be able to navigate. So it's just very interesting to be able to kind of see, how things will evolve. But, just going back to your question, will you remind me what the question was? Because I got a little distracted when I was thinking about the introvert public speaking type of thing.
Absolutely. Which what I think is it was about compartmentalization.
Oh, yes.
And I think you took it to the introvert piece. I read this book. I think the book was called Trust.
Mhm.
And they were talking about one of the characters in there. And it resonated with me because I'm very similar. I'm an introvert as well. And the character said, in order for me to be able to have privacy,
Mhm.
I need to have a public persona.
Right.
Yeah, to me, that was that compartmentalization.
Yes.
Like, you being able to design who you are in public and how you want to be in public so that you can still reserve that privacy. So, yeah, how do you kind of navigate how much to reveal and how much you want to keep to yourself?
Yeah, well, when I started the firm, organically, I just started connecting with people, on LinkedIn and social media. And for me, that was such a great way to be able to meet new people and really stay, connected and grow and have those relationships flourish. But when you talk about compartmentalizing, it is so much of what we do, because we have these different obligations, these different duties, responsibilities, personas, even. And, just going back to when I had, my prior jobs, I identified as an attorney. And so, it was like, all right, I've got to stick on this path. This is the type of work that I need to do. This is how, I have to, show up. And it wasn't until my previous job, when I was the general counsel, one of the owners was also an attorney and a woman of color. And so she was an entrepreneur. She had moved away from being a lawyer fully into this, business. And she would tell me, she's like, you have these other skills and these other gifts, you're great, with marketing and sales. And so she would push me to do these other things. And I was like, no, but I'm your lawyer. Like I have to do, these things. And so there was this struggle, between what she, saw and what she wanted, as part of my role, versus what I perceived my role to be. And so in a way, I did compartmentalize my, who I was as a professional. And so I've had to, kind of expand that, and it's continued to expand and evolve as I've had my firm, and as I become more of, this public person and public persona, that, it's just part of, for me, it's just part of my life now. There's not really a differentiation between my business and my personal life, because it's all kind of intertwined. And my husband, of course, we work together. He's our CEO, our COO. And so he helps, balance the, that business side of it. I'm not having to do it all by myself. And we have a really great, team of executives and other support as part of our business, including our oldest daughters, who are now 24 years old. So those twins that we talked about earlier, they're 24 years old now, and they are second-year law students at Boyd. So they're legacy students, and we're the first mother-daughter legacy to be at Boyd. So it's really exciting. When I tell you, and I told you earlier, that some of these things, when I look at my life now, and I look back, it just seems like such a dream. Like so much of it is like my reality is so surreal at this point when I look at, my children and my family and where we are now.
Yeah, that's remarkable. And the fact that it probably gives you so much joy to be able to see them following in your footsteps and setting their own path
Yes.
as well, but being able to continue the legacy of your business. And I want to go back to the concept you mentioned earlier of being ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you talk to your 24-year-old twins or your other three girls about being ready for whatever the moment is at hand, what are some of the aspects? Can you quantify or qualify what that feeling was for you? And I know it's different for all of us, but to help some of our listeners out who may be going through that as well, and they're not sure if they're ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it was one thing was just kind of getting out of my own way and my own mindset, or like the negative self-talk, right? Where we doubt ourselves, or we don't think, that we can do certain things. And I think it starts with that, just having the mindset of, what, I can do hard things, I can do these things. And yeah, not everything is going to work out maybe the way as I planned. And there might be some failures. There's going to be lessons, that we learn along the way, but that's part of it. That's part of the journey. That's part of the road to success. I think another huge part of what drives me is, and also my husband is, we were athletes. And so as athletes, you learn, a different type of mindset, and you learn, you have to learn how to win and lose, because you're not going to win every game. No athlete, no competitor is going to win every single thing. So that does teach you, a sense of humility and how to accept loss and how to learn from losses. And we've in turn try to teach our girls, those same lessons. And they're all athletes as well. They all play basketball. My daughters played in college, and so our younger three are also competitive. They play AAU. They're on their, national teams. They travel, and so yeah, I knew you would like that, of course. Yes, we're carrying on that family legacy through Aunt Renee Brown. Yeah. So we have five, basketball players, and, we teach them, like, you may not always be motivated, right? But you have to be disciplined, and consistency is something that will set you apart from other people. And people will, I see all the time where they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to, do this. And they set out, all these goals, or, they accept a challenge, and then they're not consistent. They don't stick with it. And I think that, if you were to call it, like one of your like superpowers, mine is consistency and it's discipline. And I think that like those things are, they're core to being able to be successful in anything that you do, whether it's playing a sport, or, being a good student, or having a good career, or, having your own business. So like trying to teach my daughters and build that work ethic, into them, and knowing, that, we put them, on different schedules at, as they've grown, where they get up early and they do a workout, and they get ready for school, and then they go to school, and then they have their after school activities. So, just having that routine and them learning how to be disciplined and how to be consistent allows for them to also become, be motivated in wanting to do more and to be better and to continue to improve.
Consistency and discipline,
Yes.
among so many other things that you do learn through sports, and we both are biased
Yeah.
about like how valuable this is, a little invaluable the experience of being an athlete, a student athlete can be in your journey, particularly for women.
Yeah.
This gives you so much more self-confidence. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. In the workplace, you could tell someone who had grown up playing in sports,
Yeah.
those maybe participating in
Mhm.
sports and maybe getting a participation trophy versus really playing sports.
Yeah.
And it was this sense of every day, to your point, every day and every practice you lose,
Yeah.
right? You miss a free throw, you lose a scrimmage game or whatever it can be. And so you get used to losing in a way. And it doesn't mean that you crave losing, like
Right.
I abhor losing, but you are able to overcome the losses. And sometimes in the workplace, those that have not participated in
Mhm.
sports are devastated and
Yes.
destroyed
Yes.
and traumatized by a loss.
Right. That's what I was going to say. They don't know how to, you mentioned like, how do you pivot? And that's the thing. Like, you have to, when you play a sport, or you're an athlete, you have to pivot immediately. And that's another thing that we tell our girls. And also, when we coach, these young people, it's next play. Like, okay, you missed that shot. All right, get back on defense. You have to be ready for the next play. And that also goes into being prepared. That's another thing. We talk about consistency, discipline. It's all about preparedness, so that if something doesn't work out, you're able to shift and continue to move, in that next step of whatever needs to be.
Yeah, when you talk about being ready, a lot of that preparation is the ability of not avoiding mistakes or failures, but how quickly can you recover?
Yeah.
Right? It's you missed the shot. How quickly can you get back on defense and make a play? And I think that mentality is what you underscored in your understanding of how you were ready in that moment. We have a guest that was on in our first season, Shantara Hardy,
Mhm.
and she said something that still resonates with me, and I mention it all the time on these episodes. But she said, and it was very simple: perfection is expensive.
Yeah,
And,
it is. I like
and
that. Yeah.
and it has a lot of us pause and wait till we think that we're ready,
Right.
and we've been ready before if we
Mhm.
just trust ourselves and if we're willing to make mistakes. She also says that version 1.0 is better than version none,
Yes.
right?
And
And
there will be different versions. There'll be different iterations. And, I think for us as women, and women of color in particular, we have these other hurdles that we have to get past that, maybe others don't. And also a difference. So when I was at one of the prior firms, and they had a diversity and inclusion person that was kind of the head of that. And when I was talking to her about, like, oh, well, I don't know if like this is really, what I want to do long term, being in, this corporate setting and being a partner here, like, I don't know, like that, I just don't feel passionate about that. And she encouraged me to look at other things and submit applications and submit resumes and, for other things that I might be interested in. And she told me, she's like, before you even do that, I know what's going to happen. You're going to look at some of these postings and you're going to see, the requirements, of what they're looking for. And you're going to say, oh, I'm not qualified for that job. Well, a man or other people, might look at it and they might have 20% of the qualifications and they'll still submit their application anyway. So I think when we talk about getting out of our own way and being able to really like put ourselves out there and not being afraid of, rejection or redirection, is what I I like to call it, like think of it, if you have been rejected from a job, that's just redirecting you to something else, a better opportunity. So I think just being open to those experiences and getting over that fear, failure is so important, but that's what holds a lot of us back.
I love that redirection. And I'll add to that reflection.
Yeah. Mhm.
Reflect on it as well. Like you constantly are able to reflect on where you've been, where you're going, what happened, what was true for you, what was challenging, what you overcame. That reflection will allow you to really, again, accelerate that redirection. And you mentioned something in passing, just that women of color, the things that you have to deal with that others may not. And I appreciate you saying that. And that, in essence, is what we like to delve into here on Unlocking the Club. Is people are going to see, Shane Jasmine Young with the Young Law Group doing exceptionally well, 5 beautiful children, beautiful marriage, successful, all of these different things, and think that things are perfect for you,
No.
that you haven't had to overcome. Are there things that you've had to overcome? And when you think about your young girls following in your footsteps, are there stories that they need to know that'll help them navigate their journey?
Yeah, I think I mentioned one thing, which was growing up with not knowing if, our bills were going to get paid, our lights getting cut off and I'd have to walk to a payphone. Remember when we had payphones? I'd have to walk to a payphone to call family members to try to ask them for money so that, we could get our utilities back on. So, growing up like that and having those experiences, people look at me now and they think like, oh, she has all these things but no, like I didn't come from that. My parents are actually from a third world country. They're from South America, Guyana. And so they immigrated as teenagers to the United States. And, their journeys were very difficult. And, for my dad to even have this entrepreneurial mindset, that was just something unheard of, for people in his generation. Both of my parents are actually the seventh of 8 children. So they come from really big families. They have older siblings and, they had a plan for them. And of course, they did their own thing that was separate from that. And my dad took risks and they didn't always work out. And I think when I saw what was happening, with his business, it just caused me to kind of go in the other direction of, like that scarcity mindset that we talked about earlier. So that's what I've had to overcome, as time has gone on. For the longest time, I refused to have a credit card, in my 20s and 30s because I saw, being an 18-year-old and applying for credit and having to utilize my credit for family, and then having, graduating from Pepperdine with, I think, almost $40,000 in credit card debt, 20 plus 25 years ago, 24 years ago, that was huge. So I felt like I constantly had to dig myself out of, a hole, whether it was, this or, the debt, and then be open to taking risks, was a challenge for me for sure.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for sharing that perspective and that story about your family and your journey. I think it's really powerful and informative for us in many different ways. And it's interesting in how you talk about how you learned how you want to orchestrate your journey through what you saw with your parents and their journey. And Shane, one of the things that I really get curious and fascinated about is the genesis of the work that we do.
Mhm.
Like oftentimes I found, and this is true for myself, there's a trigger early on in our life that once we uncover it, it helps us to figure out like our life's purpose. And I can sense the work that you're doing at the Young Law Group is purposeful for you.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm curious, Shane, for you, what was the catalyst or the genesis, I guess, or the origin story, if you
Mhm.
will, the journey to this amazing work that you're doing now?
Well, when I was a first year attorney and I was working at a big firm, Snell and Wilmer, one of my first pro bono cases, actually. So I was very much into volunteering and community service, and thankfully the law firm also encouraged that. So I was able to volunteer as a pro bono attorney for a family that was actually going through probate. So the children, hired our firm or through the pro bono legal services, legal aid center. And it was their father that had passed away. And he actually had an estate plan. He had a trust. But it had been years since he had updated it. He never talked to the attorney. The beneficiaries included his ex-wife, who was no longer, they were estranged. So now his children, adult children, were left to try to pick up the pieces, have to go to court. And they didn't understand why they had to go through this process when they were like, my dad said that he had taken care of all of these things. And unfortunately, this is very common in estate planning. Things fall apart because they're not done properly. And so from that point, as like this baby attorney, I remember seeing this family struggle, and I thought, like, how is this possible? Like, they hired an attorney. They were supposed to have these things covered. They thought that things were taken care of. And now look at this mess. And I thought for sure that was malpractice, like how could they have paid this attorney thousands of dollars and still end up, even in a worse situation? And so that was really what, kind of opened my eyes to this particular area of law. I always knew that I wanted to do something to help people and to connect with people. And I think that was my internal struggle becoming an attorney and going into the corporate setting was like, okay, well, I am helping these businesses and, on the corporate side, but like really, that wasn't necessarily the connection that I was looking for. There was a disconnect actually with the work that I was doing, even though I was good at it. And I actually was a litigator when I first started. So I was in the courtroom, I would be arguing motions and, things like that, which, going back to my background, you would have never thought that would be something that I would have done. But, I did enjoy it and I liked the strategy behind it, but I wanted to do more on a personal level to be able to, help people and really have clients, for life. And so that was really what started it, was that pro bono case. And then I continued to do pro bono work, and I saw these, basically these patterns of the same thing happening over and over again, with people not being educated about estate planning, not being prepared, thinking they were prepared and having this false sense of security, families with young children not having proper guardianship and planning in place for their kids or even their pets, of course, their assets. So over the course of those years, I learned so much and became much more interested and intrigued. And when I was a general counsel, I got a lot of that experience as well from family members who were calling looking for help because, they're the account holder of, we would hold, these accounts like IRAs and other investment accounts and things like that. And the family would call me and say, well, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to navigate this. And we thought this or we thought that. And I was limited in my ability to help them because I wasn't their attorney. So I'd have to point them to other resources. So when I did open my firm in 2017, I was able to fully dive in and really have estate planning, business planning, have those be the center of my practice so that we're able to really make a difference and do work that is purposeful.
Mm. I'm sitting there here listening to you, and there's a bunch of light bulbs popping up because a lot of some of the articles I had read about you, so many of the threads that were in those articles about the work that you do showed up in that story that you just shared.
Mm.
One of which was you had this kind of philosophy and approach that you didn't want to just have a one-time client, but you wanted to be able to interact with them for a lifetime, right? And I think so many, like for those of us that experience kind of legal assistance, it does feel like it's transactional. It's once we got it done, goodbye, maybe I won't see you again.
Right.
The other thing that really showed up quite a bit in the discourse or conversations that you're in my research was this accessibility, I
Mhm.
guess is the term that I'll use. And again, it feels like, I think for many, that legal assistance is for those with money
Mhm. Mhm.
and not everyone. But
Right.
to your point, we all need legal assistance. Like whether we have a lot of assets or we have a house that our grandmother like
Mhm.
had. And so I really appreciate that how that thread has shown up in who you know you are and who you say you are and how you're actually doing the work.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And like you said, though this work touches all of us. And there's so many misconceptions when it comes to estate planning and so many myths. And so I'm constantly, debunking, all of these different things. And I guess that's also part of the joy that I get from being able to share and like seeing the light bulbs, go off. And, people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. And when we talk about accessibility, that's something that I really, put out there because I want people to be able to, have access to these resources and have access to an attorney. It can be scary, it can be intimidating when people think about meeting with an attorney. And so I try to make people, put people at ease and make them comfortable. And that's why I offer a lot of resources, on our website. We have an on-demand video, which is free. It's available 24/7 on our website, which goes into, what is estate planning? What are the common mistakes that people make? How can you make choices now to be able to put, a proper plan in place? And everyone's planning is going to, be different. No two families planning is the same, right? Because there's different dynamics, there's different goals, there's, a lot of different factors at play. And so you don't want to work with someone that's transactional, as you mentioned, that's very typical in my industry. It's kind of a set it and forget it. People think like, all right, I signed my documents, and the lawyer's like, okay, great, thanks for the check, see you later. That's not us. We spend a lot of time, we invest a lot of time into making sure that we're answering questions and we're building the relationship, and it's ongoing. When families put planning in place with us, that's really the beginning of the relationship, because the laws are going to change. Your lives change, your assets change. And so we really do set things up in a much more comprehensive way and a much more accessible way, where we really are, your law firm for life. It's an ongoing thing.
Mm. And this is the reason why we are incredibly blessed here at Unlocking the Club to have Shane Jasmine Young be part of our 12-part series on estate planning. The work that you do, Shane, and the impact that you have, I know is going to reach beyond the client base that you're working with now through the episodes that we're going to record. And you can just hear it in your voice, how passionate you are about the work that you do, but experience that you have, the depth and the rigor around estate planning and elder care. So I'm looking forward to being in that conversation and having you break down some of these concepts for all of us as we continue this journey and recognize how important it is for us, for our legacies, to do the work now so that our future and our family's future is bright. And so I appreciate the insights, the wisdom that you shared with us. This has been phenomenal. I could keep going on and on in conversation with Shane, but we're going to ask you to stick around, because after this quick break, I want to dive in a little bit more to some questions that we like to ask our guests on a regular basis here on the Back Nine on Unlocking the Club. We'll be right back. Are you feeling stuck in your career or your business? Are you struggling to identify your unique talents and strengths? Well, I have some exciting news for you. I'm Angela Taylor, host of the Unlocking the Club podcast, with a really special opportunity for you to find more joy and more productivity in your professional and/or personal life. As a certified coach, I'm now certified in Patrick Lencioni's 6 Types of Working Genius. So my Unlocking Your Working Genius coaching package will help you uncover your working genius and unleash your full potential. In this special coaching engagement, we use a proven methodology to help you identify your natural talents and your areas of strength. And then we guide you in creating an action plan to leverage those strengths for greater success in your life, career, and/or business. So whether you're a business owner, an executive, or simply looking to advance your career, we can help you reach your full potential. Don't let your talents go untapped. Contact us today to schedule your Working Genius assessment and schedule your coaching sessions. Visit us at unlockingtheclub.com/coaching. Join us today and start unlocking your working genius for a brighter future. Hey, welcome back to Unlocking the Club. I'm Angela Taylor, your host for Unlocking the Club. And it is time for the back nine, where we get a chance to get a little bit more personal with Shane and to find out a little bit more about who she is and what her journey has been like. So, Shane, the first question is, when you think about this, besides your own home, what is the place or the space where you feel safest to be yourself?
Ooh. The first place that I popped into my head was the beach. I'm a water person, so I just love just being. I love being outdoors, but like the water just like provides kind of that safety or kind of it's like a sanctuary for me.
I love that. I love that. And I don't know if you're like me, but I didn't discover that really until COVID. It was about 4 years ago where I started to recognize how cathartic and transformative being outside, whether it was gardening, whether it was just sitting on a patio, going for hikes, being near the water, how important that was for me just to escape from the chaos of the everyday.
It's true. True.
Yeah. Well, when you think about your journey, is there something that you used to walk into with trepidation and now that you don't? And if so, what was required for you to be able to get over that hurdle?
So I would say it's probably public speaking. I mentioned this during our earlier interview where I was really just deathly afraid as a young person, as a young child. And, so like with time, I kind of forced myself to, even though I still wasn't comfortable, in high school and even in college, I would still volunteer. Like I'd raise my hand to go first just so I could get it out of the way, as time went on. And then I became a lawyer. Well, even in law school, I had to give oral arguments. And I think that's the first time where I felt really comfortable, standing up and arguing a case. And I thought, oh, you know what? Like, I'm really good at this. Like I could really do this. And then I, got a job at the firm and I became a litigator. And even that, going into court, like I think I would still have that sense of like nervousness, that nervous energy. Now, as I go into these different public speaking type of engagements, I'm more excited than anything. And, before I used to have more concern, like, oh gosh, like, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to, how am I going to look? And now I kind of just go into it and I have a good time and it's a totally different experience for me now. But I think it's just experience and mindset and just, like they say, practice makes perfect. And so the more practice I got, the more comfortable I became.
Yeah, experience, mindset, practice, and perspective. Like I'm the same. I'm an introvert. Who would think that I would have a podcast, that I would be broadcasting women's basketball, right? Like, but what the perspective that I've gained is that it's not that I'm not good at those things or comfortable in those spaces, but that I need time to recover because they zap my energy. They take a lot of my fuel. And so I need to make sure I find those spaces, the gardening or the hikes to be able to recover and rejuvenate. I'm wondering, like, and this might be very similar for you. Was there something that you used to kind of hide about who you are or what your journey was that now you refuse to hide?
I think there might have been a little bit of shame or maybe even embarrassment a little bit about, just my upbringing, and things like, you mentioned when we were talking earlier about, the different hurdles we've overcome, in my career and, being laid off, that's another thing where there could be, some negative things, applied to those types of experiences. But I don't see it that way. Also, having children so young, and, those are things that at the time it was just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Are you going to be able to go to law school? Like, are you even going to graduate? So I think that those things that may have had some level, of shame or embarrassment or stigma, attached to them, those have been momentous things that have shaped the person, that I am now, and made me given me, it's just given me the perspective that I'm able to navigate some, difficult situations. Like, you go through these other things in life, and like, this that's in front of me now. Okay, well, that's easy. Like, I can do that. So yeah, I think those are just a few examples of things that, like, I may not previously have been so open about or comfortable talking about, but it's part of my story, and I want to be able to share it because I know that there are a lot of other women, out there. There are a lot of, maybe even younger, older, whatever, but like, we all have these experiences. My life hasn't been peaches and cream, it's been really difficult, and it's just, what you make of it and what you learn from it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And thanks for sharing that. It is about perspective and being able to reframe that. It's not being afraid of all the things or shame or allow folks to make you feel guilty or judged.
Mhm.
Because sometimes that has us stop. But the formula that I like to say for unlocking the club is literally like helping to navigate that. It's to unlock your truth.
Mhm.
Like, right? Whether it's being laid off or having kids early, like, that is your truth. And then to share your story, it's so cathartic for you to be able to share your own story and to share with others because there's somebody else that may be having similar circumstances. And then when you do that, when you unlock that truth and you share that story, you can reclaim your power.
Right. And
And
you're
that's
able to help, yeah, and you're able to help others. That's how we lift each other up and say, "Look, I know what you're going through. I've been through that. I've been there, and look what's on the other side of it."
Yeah, 100%. When we think about the other side of this, you talked earlier about consistency and discipline being some of your superpowers. What are your other superpowers?
Oh my gosh. I think being able to connect with people and engage, that's one thing. Sometimes I think, the downside to that is I'm too nice. And so I'm trying to learn how to not be necessarily not be nice, but just be a good person. And that's really genuinely what I try to be, and what I try to do, out in the world is, do good work and treat people with kindness. And sometimes I think I go a little too far, and I'm too nice, and it's hard for me to set boundaries, tell people no. I don't like that. I'm a people pleaser. I tend to be a people pleaser, and so that's something that I'm continuing to work on.
Mm. Well, and this is kind of underlooked, like, right? Like, really overlooked this whole thing that you just shared. My business partner Stacy's working on some concepts about like kind of this juxtaposition between being nice
Mhm.
or the other things that people may call us, right?
Right.
And finding that middle space of being kind. Kind is very different than nice. And I think sometimes as women, particularly women inside of marginalized identities,
Mhm.
like we feel like we have to be nice so that we're not the angry person,
Mhm.
right? Whatever that may be. And so yeah, navigating, I think is a really important aspect of your journey
Mhm.
as you try to figure that out. And so when we think about the spaces and this world that we're living in, Shane, and the places that you are navigating, what's a story that needs to be told?
Oh gosh, I think it would be that no matter what life throws your way, things are not always going to go to plan, right? According to plan. And it's really being able to be fluid and accept that, things may not work out the way that you anticipated, and that's okay. And to let it go and to look towards that next opportunity and that next step. So all the things that I think we've talked about kind of tie into that, just being able to shift and have the mindset, and have the faith, and being able to pivot, and, being adaptable, and, but still showing up, consistently, like not letting setback, cause you to go crawl into, despair or, into a hole, but like learning from it and just, growing and being able to continue to move forward and press forward.
Mm. Well, as you press forward, when you're at your best, however you would define being at your best, what's true for you?
Oh my gosh. I really feel like I'm at my best when my family is happy. When my children are thriving, my husband and I are firing on all cylinders, and because we work together, when we're at home, we're having conversations about work and, vice versa. And, I feel like when we're able to really we call it taking advantage of the advantage, because our daughters work with us as well. So when other businesses shut down, we don't. We're 24/7. We're constantly thinking of, okay, how can we get this information out, to the community? How can we make more impact? How can we be of service? How can we grow? And how can we be better? And so really just, I feel like I'm at my best when I'm, being productive and we're moving these common goals and our mission forward.
So you're at your best when your family is happy. What brings you joy?
How Well, what brings me joy? Spending time with my family, of course. I love traveling, and that's something that, we haven't always had, the opportunity to do, being young parents, being young professionals with COVID, so although we have traveled, all of course through those years, looking forward to doing more of that. And so even this year, we've got three international trips planned. So I'm excited about that. Those are things that I look forward to. So, when we talk about being at our best, it can be hard, right? To keep this momentum going. And so like being an introvert, when you're working so hard and you're functioning at a very high capacity, you've got to take that time, to rest and relax and rejuvenate. And so those are the things that I really look forward to and help me, staying at the top of my game.
Mm. Well, and I get the sense that your life has been full of courage, right? As you think about and you share your parents immigrating from Guyana, to graduating magna cum laude while pregnant with twins, you going through law school after having twins. So you certainly have exhibited a lot of courage along the way. What is something that you would do if you were braver?
Wow. Something that I would do if I were braver, I probably would, and this is possibly something that I'll do, in the future, but I would probably pursue other ventures outside of, the law firm, maybe like other business ventures. I really I've really come to love speaking, and so, like, having my own, like, talk show or, like, television show, like, those are things that I think, I would really enjoy I would enjoy doing. So, I don't know if it's that I'm not brave enough yet. I think it might be just, like, commitment and capacity to doing some of these other things, but maybe if I were a little braver in that sense, I would have just done it already, but because I have to have things kind of, planned out and lined up a certain way, it may just take me a little longer to get there.
I guess you'll know when you're ready.
Right.
And we will all be on the lookout for the Shane Jasmine Young show, podcast, speaking engagement, whatever that entails. What else should we be on the lookout for? Are there any special projects that you're working on, or where can our listeners and viewers find you?
Yes. So the best place to find us is on our website. So younglawlive.com is where even that on-demand video that I mentioned earlier, it's available 24/7. You'll also have access to the upcoming events and other things that we've got coming up. One thing that we've utilized our law firm as a platform for is creating a group. It's an organization called Women Decision Makers. So it is focused on women in the community. We actually have an event that we host every other month, and we've been doing this almost since the inception of the law firm in 2017. So several years now where we host this event. We have different speakers come in. We have different topics that we focus on. The last topic was breast cancer awareness and women's health. And the upcoming event in November will be focused on women in philanthropy and charitable giving. So we try to highlight, women in the community that are doing, great work, also topics that are relevant to us, and our health and, what we may be going through in our professional and or personal lives. So the website to that, for anyone that would be interested in getting more information, is ylgwdm.com. So YLG for Young Law Group, WDM.com.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Well, as expected, Shane, so many dimes were dropped. I know you'll appreciate that. It's so much insight share. So I appreciate your wisdom, your grace, and certainly the work that you're doing. And you saying yes to being part of this Unlocking the Club estate planning and elder care 12-part series. I'm really looking forward to being in conversation and learning from you and all the work that you do in your community and for your community. I know I learned a lot from today's conversation, and without a doubt, our listeners and viewers did as well. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, if you enjoyed today's conversation and you want to keep it going, join us on our Code Breakers community over on our Facebook page, the Code Breakers Lounge, and make sure you tell a friend by being a friend about Unlocking the Club so you can make sure that they understand how they can unlock their truth, share their story, and reclaim their power. For the Unlocking the Club community, I'm your host, Angela Taylor. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, be well.
Thanks for listening to Unlocking the Club. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or your favorite streaming platform so that you can experience every episode. And follow us on social media, where you'll hear about future guests, access special features, and connect with this amazing community. Head on over there and let us know how you are unlocking the club. Until next time, peace.